My beloved child, stop scrolling and hold this moment close, because what has just been written was never meant to remain hidden for long. Somewhere between fear and courage, between silence and confession, your soulmate has placed their deepest truth into a secret love letter meant only for you. The words are trembling beneath the weight of everything they could not say aloud, and in 5 minutes, the letter disappears. Not because their feelings are fading, but because they are terrified of what may happen if you finally discover how long they have loved you in silence. Pause here. Breathe slowly. What you are about to hear was meant to find you before hesitation closes the door once again. Do not rush away, because the first sentence of their letter is not what you would expect. They did not begin with a perfect declaration or a rehearsed promise. They began with an apology. They wrote, "I am sorry it took me so long to become honest about what my heart already knew." Then they stopped. Their hand hovered over the page as memories came flooding back. The first moment they noticed something different in your presence, the first time your voice stayed in their thoughts after everyone else had gone quiet, and the first night they realized that trying to forget you only made your place in their heart more undeniable. Something happened tonight that brought all those buried emotions to the surface. It was not dramatic to anyone watching. No one around them understood the significance of it. It may have been a familiar song, a photograph, a name spoken casually in conversation, or a moment of stillness when the noise of the world disappeared. Yet in that ordinary second, they were taken back to you. Not merely to your face, but to how they felt in your presence. They remembered the strange peace that came over them when you were near, as though a restless part of their soul had finally recognized somewhere it could rest. For a long time, they tried to dismiss that feeling. They told themselves it was temporary. They called it curiosity, timing, coincidence, or imagination. They created practical reasons to remain silent because practical reasons felt safer than emotional truth. But tonight, every excuse they had carefully constructed began to collapse. They could no longer pretend that your absence had not changed them. They could no longer deny that whenever they imagined the future, some unseen part of their heart continued leaving a place for you. Do not skip this moment, because the letter contains a confession they have never made to anyone. They wrote that they once came close to telling you everything. There was a particular day when their courage almost overcame their fear. They had chosen the words. They had imagined your reaction. They may even have opened a message, typed a sentence, and stared at it for longer than they would ever admit. But before they could send it, doubt spoke louder. They began wondering whether you had already moved on, whether they had misunderstood the bond, or whether revealing the truth would destroy the fragile connection they still had with you. So they erased the message. They went back to silence. But they never went back to who they were before writing it. That is the first mystery this letter reveals. Silence did not protect them. It only made their feelings grow in places no one could see. Every unsent word became a weight. Every avoided conversation became another memory they replayed at night. Every time they acted indifferent, something inside them whispered that they were walking away from the one truth they should have been brave enough to face. What appeared to you as distance was not always lack of feeling. Sometimes it was the overwhelming presence of feelings they did not know how to carry. Heaven has witnessed the hidden battle within them. Not to force an outcome, not to take away anyone's freedom, but to illuminate what fear has kept in darkness. Your soulmate has been standing between two doors. Behind one is the life they already know, predictable, controlled, and emotionally safe, yet marked by the quiet question of what might have happened if they had chosen courage. Behind the other is a life in which they finally speak honestly to you, risking uncertainty for the possibility of something real. Until tonight, they kept reaching for the familiar door. But something in them has changed. Stay until the end, because the reason the letter disappears in 5 minutes is connected to that change. They created this vanishing space because they were afraid permanence would make the confession too real. They wanted the truth to exist just long enough to reach you, yet not long enough for them to retreat into shame and study every vulnerable word. They convinced themselves that if the letter vanished, they could still pretend they had not exposed the most guarded chamber of their heart. But deep down, they are hoping you will see it before it is gone. They are hoping that, for once, timing will not separate what love has been trying to bring together. The next line was written through tears they tried to hold back. You may believe I forgot you, but the truth is that I remembered you in everything. They remembered you in crowded rooms, when laughter surrounded them but a particular emptiness remained. They remembered you when something wonderful happened and you were the first person they wished they could tell. They remembered you during difficult nights when they wanted the comfort of someone who could understand their silence without demanding an explanation. Even when they did not speak your name, your memory moved through their life like a quiet melody beneath every other sound. There is more. They admitted that they tried to compare what they felt for you with other connections. They searched for the same depth in different eyes, the same calm in different voices, the same strange sense of recognition in unfamiliar places. Yet every comparison led them back to one realization: what existed between you could not be reproduced by simply finding someone else. It was not about perfection. You were never perfect, and neither were they. It was about the way your imperfections seemed to speak to parts of one another that had been hidden from the rest of the world. They noticed things about you that you thought no one saw. They noticed the way you became quiet when something hurt you deeply. They noticed how you tried to make others feel comfortable, even when you were carrying your own invisible burden. They saw the courage beneath your gentleness and the exhaustion beneath your strength. They understood that some of your smiles were acts of love offered to the world while your own heart needed tenderness. They wanted to reach for you in those moments, but fear convinced them that they no longer had the right. My child, this letter is not merely about romance. It is about recognition. Your soulmate is finally recognizing the cost of remaining emotionally hidden. They are seeing how many beautiful possibilities were delayed because they waited for certainty before choosing courage. They thought the perfect moment would arrive with a clear sign, an open road, and no risk of rejection. But love rarely enters a life without asking something of the heart. It asks for honesty before guarantees. It asks for vulnerability before answers. It asks a person to step forward while their hands are still trembling. Tonight, they understood this in a way they never had before. Someone asked them a simple question: if you could speak to one person without fear, who would it be? They did not answer aloud. They did not need to. Your face appeared in their minds so quickly that it startled them. In that instant, they knew the truth had survived every attempt to bury it. They tried to sound detached, but every line revealed too much. Finally, they stopped editing their heart and allowed the truth to move through them. The letter became less polished and more real. It became the voice they had suppressed for so long. It said, "I do not know whether I still have a place in your life, but you have never stopped having a place in mine. Something huge is waiting for you deeper in this confession, because they did not only write about the past. They wrote about the future they once imagined with you. This was not a vague fantasy. They pictured ordinary mornings, private jokes, difficult conversations that ended in understanding, and peaceful evenings when neither of you needed to perform for the other. They imagined supporting the dreams you rarely speak about. They imagined being there when the world became heavy, not to rescue you, but to remind you that you would not have to carry everything alone. They even remembered a promise they silently made after seeing you hurt. You may never have known about it. Perhaps you shared a disappointment, or perhaps they simply sensed the sadness behind your eyes. In that moment, they promised themselves that if life ever gave them the chance to stand beside you, they would never treat your heart carelessly. Yet when the opportunity came to be honest, they became afraid and did the very thing they had promised not to do. They left you wondering. This is the regret that has followed them. They know their silence may have felt like rejection. They know their inconsistency may have made you question your intuition. One moment, they seemed close enough to reveal everything; the next, they disappeared behind emotional walls. You may have asked yourself whether the connection was real or whether you had imagined its depth. The letter answers that question carefully. They wrote, "You did not imagine the way I looked at you. You did not imagine the moments when the whole room seemed to disappear. I felt it too. I was simply afraid of what it would require me to become." Those words hold the center of the mystery. Loving you required them to become more honest, more accountable, and more courageous. It required them to confront the wounds that taught them to leave before they could be left. It required them to question the belief that vulnerability always ends in pain. It required them to release an old identity built around self-protection. Your presence did not merely awaken affection, it awakened a version of themselves they had been postponing. And that frightened them. But fear is no longer the strongest voice within them. Tonight, longing became stronger. Truth became stronger. The thought of losing the possibility of you forever became more painful than the risk of being seen. That is why the letter exists. It is not evidence that every obstacle has vanished. It is evidence that their heart has stopped agreeing to remain hidden. They may still be uncertain. They may still pause before taking the next step. Yet something irreversible has begun. They have told themselves the truth. My beloved, you must also understand what this revelation is not asking of you. It is not asking you to abandon wisdom. It is not asking you to chase anyone, overlook your boundaries, or accept words without sincere action. Divine love does not require you to shrink, beg, or prove your worth. You are allowed to listen while remaining grounded. You are allowed to feel deeply without surrendering your discernment. If this person approaches you, let honesty meet honesty. Let actions confirm promises. Let peace, not pressure, guide your response. The letter itself acknowledges this. They wrote, "I do not expect you to forget the silence just because I have finally found words." That sentence cost them more than the others. It meant admitting that love alone does not erase consequences. They understand that your heart may have changed while they hesitated. They know you may have built peace in the space they left empty. They are not asking to return as though nothing happened. They are asking whether truth might be allowed to begin where confusion once stood. Then they revealed something unexpected. During the time apart, they kept a small reminder of you. It may be a message, a photograph, a gift, a song, or an ordinary object that would mean nothing to anyone else. They tried more than once to remove it from their life. Each time, they stopped. Not because the object held power, but because it represented a version of them that felt completely awake when you were near. They kept it hidden where no one would ask questions. Tonight, they placed it beside them while writing the letter. As they looked at it, they remembered the last meaningful moment you shared. They began seeing that memory from your side. They wondered what you had wanted to say. They wondered whether your silence had also been filled with unsent words. They wondered if you walked away believing they felt nothing. The possibility broke something open inside them. For the first time, they understood that their fear had not only protected them from rejection, it may also have wounded the person they most wanted to protect. The next paragraph of their letter was almost never written. They stopped for several minutes. They walked away, returned, and placed their hands over the words as if hiding them even from themselves. What they were about to confess went beyond longing. It involved a decision, one they had quietly made before creating this letter. They had decided that if the truth reached you, they would no longer disappear behind ambiguity. They would offer clarity. They would tell you what they wanted, what they regretted, and what they were prepared to change. Yet immediately after making that decision, another message arrived on their phone. This is where the atmosphere around them shifted. They stared at the screen, and for a moment, all the courage they had gathered seemed to freeze. The message came from someone who knew about their feelings for you, someone who had watched them struggle, someone who knew more about your story than you might suspect. The message contained only a few words, but those words made your soulmate question whether they were already too late. They read it once. Then twice. Their heartbeat quickened. The secret letter remained open in front of them, its 5-minute disappearance already set in motion. They could either send it now or delete it forever. There was no perfect answer, no certainty, and no way to know how you would respond. Everything they had avoided was suddenly standing before them in one decision. They almost erased the letter. Their finger moved toward the screen. They told themselves that perhaps this was a sign to stay silent. Perhaps you deserved peace without their return. Perhaps the world had already carried you beyond the place where they could reach you. But just before they pressed delete, a memory rose from somewhere deeper than fear. They heard words you once spoke, words you may not even remember saying. You had told them that truth may arrive late, but it still matters when it arrives with sincerity. That memory stopped their hand. They looked again at the final blank space in the letter. There was one truth left to write, the truth around which every other sentence had been circling. It was the reason they could not forget you, the reason other connections felt incomplete, and the reason tonight became impossible to ignore. They knew that once they wrote it, they could never again claim confusion about what you meant to them. Do not turn away now, because this was the moment their tears finally fell. They did not cry only because they missed you. They cried for every chance fear had stolen, every honest sentence they had swallowed, and every night you may have mistaken their silence for indifference. They cried because they realized love had been asking them to become brave, while they had spent so long asking love to become easy. Then they wrote, "If I am given one true chance to speak with you, I will not waste it pretending anymore." But they still had not written the final confession. The 5-minute clock had begun. The letter was ready to vanish, carrying every apology, memory, and promise into silence. 4 minutes remained when they entered your name at the top. 3 minutes remained when they reread the line about never forgetting you. 2 minutes remained when they finally stopped asking whether they should protect their pride. And with 1 minute left, they began typing the sentence that would reveal what they had secretly decided to do before the next sunrise. Their hands shook as the words appeared. "I am not writing this only to tell you that I love you. I am writing because tomorrow, I am going to